Joyce. Okay. That's our key. Okay, this is the September 12th Planning Forum meeting, and we do not have the minutes from August 8th to approve. And Candace is working on those. She's had others important pieces of business that she's had to take care of. And she'll get those out within the week so that they can be reviewed. She shared with me today that they are 9 pages. So it seemed to be an interesting discussion last month. So we'll go right into the presentations. And first, Allison will be presenting the PED report because she will be heading to another meeting. We see her, she's currently in her car, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks. Joyce, if you could share the screen, then others can see the PED report.
Yeah.
And the very first mistake that I have that says it's the June-July activity, it's actually the August activity. Sorry about that. But reporting the Parking Enhancement District revenue, the Parking Enhancement District collects parking revenue from 6 to 3 a.m. Thursday through Sunday, and is used for improvements in the area where it's collected. August PED revenue total was $32,836.93. There were no enforcement costs. There was one expenditure, the clean team, for which we pay the PDP and their subcontractor block by block for the July cleaning. It's $17,141.78. The gross revenue for 2023 so far is $235,955.68. And the total revenue since the inception of the Parking Enhancement District is $1,264,846.65. The trust fund balance to date is $175,609.21, giving us a total, well, I mean, we will be spending some of that on Clean Team in the next few months, but with the revenue to date and the trust fund balance, we have, a little over $400,000. If there are no questions on the Parking Enhancement District revenue report, I can move forward with the rest. There were no liquor license changes in the month of August. The Clean Team reports that they're still kind of working out the team that has changed some team members, and they're starting to work on some of the weed abatement and just really starting on the graffiti removal and the stickers. They did take note of the feedback to service the entire district beyond 20th and below 9th, and we'll be working harder on that. They did say there were no notable quantities of alcohol containers collected in August. However, today, Bob and I were at a bar owners meeting. We're in the police, the Southside Entertainment unit, reported that they're still seeing a lot of alcohol containers being consumed on the street. And by that, they mean, very large fifths or pints of alcohol. So they've collected 15,177 pounds of trash. And though the weed abatement blocks are only 2, they're just in the beginning stages of doing that for this month. So that's it for the report. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What is the process for spending more of that PED money? Like, I know that Southside Community Council has been working on a big branding effort, and that seems to be something that could dovetail with the enhancement district. Is there any? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to. The Parking Enhancement District was formed legislatively, and so there are very strict guidelines as to what it can and cannot be spent on. Bob, yeah, I bet it would be a good time. I know you're here. I just saw you. Where are you? There you are. To perhaps maybe share a copy of the legislation with members of the planning forum, email it out, and we won't do that right now, but it might help you have a little better understanding as to the restrictions of the money. But the money is provided specifically for cleanliness, public safety, and infrastructure. And that's a very condensed version of it, but that's what permits us to provide for the clean team. That is what has provided us in the past to provide for cameras through the public safety department and other policing efforts. And then infrastructure kinds of things is a little broader to kind of really clearly define. But some of that came out of a process through RHI where we had focused on public safety through environmental design and how to reduce incidents of violence or crime through having better environmental design. I'll leave it at that. So something like a Main Street manager or something like a branding campaign would not be permitted, as I understand it anyway, legislatively, as the way the Parking Enhancement District was formed. I hope that was
And the flower baskets, that kind of.
Yeah, we did. We have always thought that that would fit under sort of infrastructure, if you will, as a way to enhance the street and that those kinds of things. Yes. And we talked a little bit about that at the last planning forum. Bob, would you mind jumping in on that? I think you had come up with cost of something like $1,500 a basket per season.
Maybe not quite that much, but it's a lot. It's when you consider the amount of baskets we need, it's in the thousands. I don't know if it's 15, but it's like 5,000.
Per basket.
Kind of what a basket per basket. So
I was saying 15. I was saying 1,500. You're saying 5,000.
It's something like that. I'm thinking 3,000 to 5,000. I think for the initial basket, and then the maintenance after that. I mean, it's a lot. And we think we have 90 poles, somewhere in that range.
And two rods per pole.
Yeah. It's definitely something we'd love to see, but you're not just paying for the baskets when you pay for the baskets. You're paying for the liability being the biggest thing. That these need to be baskets that aren't going to fall on someone's head, and and all the liability around that. But the initial install is, I want to say we're talking 3,000, 3,500, 3,000, 5,000, something in that range. I can get a better number for you, but
Could we maybe perhaps for next month's planning forum have something from the Downtown Partnership, since they do this regularly, to have an idea of what something like that might cost?
Sure.
And I'm assuming like banners would be less liability or dangerous or something.
Yes.
We've done banners in the past. Sorry,
No, Bob, please go ahead.
Banners end up being about 200. The 200 banners is what we ended up with. And we were able to do those. We've actually saved all the banners that we put up last year. And actually the year previous as well, that are kind of the holiday banners. But it is something, and it has been our desire that maybe this is something we do again with the branding effort, depending where we are in that process, that these aren't just holiday banners, but they also have the branding. But we've contracted that work out to 84 Lumber. They put them up, they took them down. Actually, the fire department is storing them for us, but that process has happened last year, and then it was in 2019 going into 2020. We did that previously. And that is a use. We would love to be able to do more elaborate holiday decorations, but that's just, again, it's when you multiply something by 90, it gets incredibly expensive very quickly. So lighting
And,
or anything like that is not really attainable at this point.
you know, and the unfortunate part of this conversation is the fact that we have to spend close to $20,000 a month to keep the street clean. There's minimal, if any, cooperation from business entities along the street to have a pride within their business district to keep it clean and orderly. It really is foundational as to why we were forced really to form the parking enhancement district, because the street had become so unmanageable.
So there was discussion last month about a water container or so. Mike Clark, do you want, Mike Clark had brought that up. Has there been any movement around that? And Mike can probably give those in attendance what it was that he was talking about.
Yes, we were looking for, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, last month I proposed that we use some of the PED funding to secure a water buffalo for a truck mounted to help water the trees along Carson during drier times. They seem to be dying off, some of them, during drier times, and this would help us be able to maintain them on our own without reliance on the larger forestry department that's covering the entire city, as they'll tell you. So we're looking at this as a way to utilize some of those funds to take care of our problems locally. Was there any movement on that then in the past month, guys?
So Mike and I did have an extensive conversation about that after planning forum. I do believe that fits under the guidelines of infrastructure and caring for the street. What I would need really would be a proposal of some kind, or some kind of guidance as to what this piece of equipment actually looks like, so that we could cost it out. I do believe we have room for storage long term. I really want to check in with Engine 24, but I believe we would have the space there to store it seasonally. Yeah, so that shouldn't be an issue. But really what I would need is some kind of a proposal of what it looks like, where it comes from, how to purchase it, what the cost might be. And I think that's something that could be presented at planning forum. And if we're all in agreement that that's the route we'd like to go, happy to do so. Very similar to purchasing the gator for the clean team. There's a process by which we developed it right here at the planning forum. We were able to offer up what it looked like, what it cost, where we could get it. Planning forum agreed, and we purchased it and put it into service.
I will get to a cut sheet and put it on the agenda for next month. It's
Yeah.
a simple tank. I equate it actually more to a tool like a shovel than I would to the gator, since it's an inert object. It has no moving parts. It's just a tank. So.
And how is it transported, Mike? On the gator? Behind the gator, I mean? Or,
Actually, I'm proposing that it's on the back of a truck, and it's, my truck or someone else's truck. It fits any back pickup truck, basically, because a volunteer piece of the community council would be utilizing it to do that work.
So herein comes the lawyers and liability.
Yeah.
And one of the things we ran into, and Allison, I know, was here with the gator, was that the city could not own the gator because we would then become liable for the operation of it, the insurance of it, and any accidents that might be incurred with it. And so we had to actually have the downtown partnership buy the gator. It is their gator, quote unquote, housed there, and it is used by our clean team exclusively. So would have to find some way to do that again. And Mike, I'm happy to work with you, individually on this, but would have to find a way, again, working with the downtown partnership to work around liability and operation.
How about the PED? The Southside Community Council purchases it, and the PED reimburses us for that, and we are the holders of it and the users thereof. And that way the downtown partnership can be sidestepped in this instance.
It sounds feasible, but I'd rather take it offline and talk directly with attorneys with you, Mike, and see what their thoughts are about that. Because we're using publicly collected tax dollars to make the purchase, and therein lies what could be a minor complication that I just don't feel enlightened enough to make a decision on.
Okay. We will have a meeting in the next week or so. I'll set something up.
Okay, Mike, thanks.
Okay, anything more for Allison and Bruce around the PED report?
Can I offer up one last thing?
Sure.
It's about 22 years in the making. I think it could actually be a little bit longer than that. But I think most of you that travel 18th Street might have noticed the signal installation at Josephine, and that the lights are actually there. They're covered, they're not operational yet, but it looks like I don't know if the plan, and maybe Representative Benham might be able to shed some light on this. I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if they're planning to illuminate all intersections simultaneously, or they're going to do them individually. But I went through 18th and Josephine today, and lights are clearly installed. They're just covered with like brown sacks. They look like they are ready to launch any minute. But I don't exaggerate when I say I think it's about a 22-year process to get that light in that intersection, but it's going to happen, which is a really good thing. Bob,
Yeah, I have not been informed what the plan is, or what it is that they are waiting for there. I could certainly find out. I'll add it to my long list of things to chat with PennDOT about here.
That would be great. Thank you. Bob, I don't know if we want to, forgive me.
I might be able to shed some light on that because
Yes.
I was hanging out at the corner of Sarah and 18th and Patricia Kearns was there from Domi, and she said they are going to be inspecting all the lights on all the intersections. They were starting at Sarah and they were going to go straight up the hill. And then once they knew that all the lights were working, then the second step would be to remove all the old traffic lights. And so I don't know if that answers the question that was on the table, but that's what I know.
It's right around the corner. It's just right around the corner. Bob, do we want to go down the road of Hippie Town today, or should we save that for another day?
No, I think I'll have an aneurysm.
I'm sorry?
I think I'll have an aneurysm if I talk about them.
So I will make this very, very brief. There's been an operation, a store that has not served the district well at 13th and Kaiser called Hippie Town. We had reason to believe, even though they claimed to be selling Delta 8, that they were indeed selling marijuana. Long story short, they were evicted. It's been a little complicated. It has taken several months to accomplish it, but we've kept on them, working with law enforcement, the property owner, the property manager. And yesterday and today, the eviction was instituted. It got a little complicated. It probably will remain a little complicated, but we're 98% there with having the business of it. How's that, Bob? Okay.
That works.
It was a busy day around Hippie Town today. But,
before Allison jumps off, I just wanted to ask, when is there an expected restart time for enforcement for the PED? I know that's been unenforced for a while now, and I know that there's challenges, but I do know that when you have enforcement, you have higher revenues, that's for sure, more compliance. So
Is Matt on the call by chance?
yes.
I mean, he's better articulate that than me.
Yeah.
Matt,
I am on the call.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. So we actually have the staff to enforce, but because of the ongoings of the violence, we weren't we were waiting for the police to walk with us. We had a police officer walking with our enforcement officers. However, the police officers don't always show up, so therefore we are not enforcing on the street and not enforcing the PED. We are going into either the RPP area or just staying within the lots. Our staff is instructed to not go on the street if there's no police officers. It's been hit or miss with regards to the police. And actually the reports that I send to Allison, it's maybe 1 or 2 of the days that the police will show up. But then other times it's the whole weekend where the police just decide not to show up. But we do have the staff there and ready to enforce. So I'm going to get the okay from Dave Honorato, but we are going to start charging for enforcement again, especially on the days that we are writing tickets. And there are visible tickets that we're writing on the street for those areas. So I just have to get the go live date to start charging again for that. But I wouldn't, so that expense will start to come out again. Let's just say for all intents and purposes, October 1st, we can go live with that again, but I'll get the for sure go live date with that.
Matt, can we also
go ahead?
Is there any reason why we couldn't enforce Carson Street up into a certain time? Just saying, nothing on Carson. I think that's not. I know it gets crazy, 10:30, 11 o'clock on 3 nights a week, but not doing any enforcement from say 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock during when I think it's some of the busiest times on Friday and Saturday. Lots of people are there utilizing the parking, and that's a very safe time. I'm there out on the street enjoying.
Well, when I say not enforcing Carson, I meant for like the pet hours, like during the pet hours. So up until 6 o'clock, because it hasn't yet, but once it starts getting dark, our enforcement officers are instructed that they have to be in pairs anyway. So just for their safety, we want them with the police officer if they're there.
And Matt, it being in pairs is by union contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so if I may jump in here just briefly, in terms of the connection between enforcement and revenue, they're not always per se connected. We are bringing in the highest numbers the PED has ever had in the last maybe 6 months or so. We've never seen the kinds of numbers that we are seeing now. Allison, you can help me out. Is it about 8,000 a weekend? During pandemic,
that's right. But
during
I
pandemic, I'm sorry,
I wonder
during pandemic, we were around 3,000 a weekend. Right?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity for us to do a parking study again, because my feeling is that it's quite possible that a lot of the revenue is coming down from Southside Works and not so much in the heart. I think there's been
the no longer enforcing the safety lane has been a difference in that those revenues, those meters are all online and collecting revenue. We're finally finished with construction. We took big hits during construction, big hits during pandemic. But right now we are about $36,000 a month that we're bringing in on PED. So the numbers are really very healthy. We are limited. There are only 690 meters that we can collect on. I believe it might even be a little bit less than that. Those 690 might include the parking lots. If I'm sure, I'm not sure. But in terms of enforcement, Bob and I had an extensive meeting with Deputy Mayor Pollock on Friday. And as we were exiting, he shared with me that they are seconds away from the ability to actually ticket by mail. And that we were going to meet again on that to sort of flesh that out, but that he feels that we have been able to put aside any hiccup that we hit along the way with being able to legally ticket by mail, which means the enforcement officer doesn't even have to leave the car to do that. State Representative Benham, I don't want to put you on the spot again, but maybe you and I, since you have been very helpful in this regard, maybe you and I could do a call with Deputy Mayor Pollock to see what his thoughts are now and how close we really are to being able to ticket by mail.
I'm certainly happy to. I also think you have all of the documentation from the state that I've sent you showing that it is legal from our end. So, you know, if I'm in session when it works for them, you know, you'll have all of that. But regardless, you know, myself or someone from my office would be more than happy to.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. So there appears to be some light on the horizon there as far as ticket by mail goes.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to infer that we were, because we spoke about this before, that there's no revenue share on ticket revenues from enforcement. I'm just clearly, I was trying to express that I know that people are in the know that are in the neighborhood that there is no enforcement on the street after 6 p.m. and people talked about it. I've been around them. So we are losing out on people that are in the know paying any type of meter charge because there's no enforcement. So if they started seeing some type of enforcement for the first, you know, from 6 to 9, 6 to 10, they might get a change in whether or not they're going to put a quarter in the meter or $1 or whatever it is to pay, which would, I think, generate more income for the PED. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Mike.
And I think too, what Allison brought up, knowing which meters are bringing in those monies, and she's thinking that it's those that are closer to Southside Works rather than the ones, let's say, on 12th Street, as Mike is bringing up. So it just provides a little more data, and I don't know if you know what the cost of doing that is, but I think it would be good information.
I think it would actually be free because now all of our meters are digital. If you read the report, that was one of the shortcomings pointed out in the report about identifying what time exactly or what revenue came from where, but you could break it down by meter, by location. So it would just be about requesting from the meter company that data and someone sorting it. From
Mike is probably right. Mike's probably right on that one. And that would live within the parking authority. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Glenn Bolden is no longer with the parking authority. She left about a month or even 2 ago now. And she was our go-to within parking authority. We were able to find out what we needed within a moment's notice. But I think that that information lives within parking authority, and it would be helpful to ask if they could compile that for us.
Yes, that we actually do have all that information.
Yeah, I figured. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. So Matt, could you run that, pull that together for us maybe for next month? Is that something we could possibly hear from you guys?
Yes, I should be able to pull that by the meters.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Just
Okay.
if somebody could shoot me a quick email, possibly just the exact date range that you would like to see, the date range, and then obviously I know the times because you're just looking at the pen. So
we have a person, Sonia, on our board who's really good with metadata. I don't know if we can just dump the year. She could do it all, sort it through her algorithms and stuff. She works for Google. You know how they go. I don't know if that's, if we just say the year 2023 so far and we can have her noodle on it. Is that possible?
yeah, I mean, I can see what I can pull and what she would need. Okay. You could just put her in touch with me if you would like.
I will. Thank you, Matt.
Okay. And just wanted to share, unless you've looked at the chat, Allison had mentioned as when we were talking about baskets, she spoke with Jeremy at the Downtown Partnership, and he said the baskets downtown are foundation funded. And he said that we should reach out directly to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, and he'd be happy to make the introduction to Art Demio.
Nice. Good.
Okay. So I think that if there's nothing left for Bruce and Bob at this point, we have a presentation by Marty Battistone. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Senior Environmental Planner with the city, and also Thomas Sheriff, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Thanks.
And regarding the master plan for our parks here on the flats.
Hi, yeah, it's not much of a presentation, just more of a, wanted to come and speak to you all. Like I said, I'm Marty. I'm one of the environmental planners in the Department of City Planning. I do park planning for parks across the city, and the City Council office had put money towards planning for Armstrong and Ormsby parks. And there have been kind of a few complications on the administrative side of things. I won't bore you with those details, but the contract is done and we are ready to get moving. We have brought on Pashik MTR to do the planning for this. If anyone is involved in the Southside Park, they are handling that current phase right now. They've done a lot of different plans for parks across the city, and I have a lot of faith that they, can create plans for both these spaces that can be implemented and maintained, which I know are two important characteristics. So, this is because they are smaller parks, and also because we want to ensure that if there are any capital budget requests that come out of this, that we're able to make those by next year. It will be a pretty compact process starting ideally, later this month or early October. And so we really wanted to come and ensure that all of the neighborhood organizations are represented on the, sort of advisory committee that we'll be putting together. And Thomas, I don't know if you want to jump in at all.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I understand there's already, many of you have already been involved in some prior kind of preliminary organizing on wanting to get a group started on this. But yeah, we wanted to extend the invitation as well to the broader planning forum. Additionally, if there's folks kind of representative from each member organization, for example, that would like to kind of be especially involved in maybe that core kind of group to provide community input and guidance. And we'll have opportunities certainly for broader community engagement. And but I know we're looking at doing a site visit at some point soon, Marty. So we would love to invite maybe a representative from each planning forum organization if you'd like that.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize this is the first movement we've made on this, externally. So we don't want anyone to feel like there's a group that's being assembled that they're not a part of. So we, just kind of wanted to use this. The timing just worked out. This meeting was happening. And so we wanted to just put that out there. There will be obviously a lot of both public, online, and in-person engagement, but then sort of having a smaller cohort of people that can be sharing information as the project progresses with their different organizations and networks. So yeah, we kind of just wanted to put it out. We will put in the chat. We've just launched an Engage page. There's not a whole lot on it yet. Oh yeah, Thomas is on it. So if you want to encourage people they can go, quote unquote, follow that page. And then when we do have, meeting notifications or any initial surveys, things like that, they will be notified of that. So just as sort of a first go, they can, and we have something on there where people can share memories or things like that too. I see that Kathleen has their hand up if you want to go ahead.
Hi, I'm with Southside Community Council, and Mike Clark and I have been working with Southside Community Council on the parks and everything. So we would really need to be involved with everything that you do. And then I know that Claire Pro represents Southside Kids and she'll want to be involved. And then Kitty is pretty active with Armstrong Park because Kitty is working on Esther's. So, oh, and Cara has a child and she's on SSNA. So that's like the core group that we were going to organize.
Those are the names I have received so far. So you're
Okay.
5 for 5.
Okay, great.
So perfect. Yeah, great. To
Thank
hear.
you.
I'm glad that's validated. That was what Bob and Thomas communicated as sort of the group that had kind of already, moved some things along. So that's great.
Okay, perfect.
So I think that those, again, we don't want people to feel like this is an exclusive process, but we also, certain events like the site visit where we're going to be with, DPW and the consultants, we don't necessarily want that to be a full, public meeting. So having a smaller group at stuff like that is helpful.
Yeah, I guess the way we were looking at it was we would help be your interface to the community as the community council and the RCO for the community, more so than the planning forum, I guess. But we can talk about that as we move forward. So, yeah.
But I do want to say that this is what this community meeting is for. If we're engaging more than just the residents of Southside, we have the slopes, and slopes residents do use the parks, and certainly the chamber is an organization, Southside Community Action Network, and it's a place where, again, as with the PED report and with other reports, it's a report out place. That it's always going to happen 5:30 on a Tuesday. There's nothing to say that you can't go in our newsletters that the slopes and the community council puts together. But this is a really nice gathering place that every single month there can be information to the community, and it's also recorded, and there's those that cannot be in attendance can view the video.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, and I was gonna say, if there are specific suggestions as representatives from those additional groups, they can feel free to reach out to Marty or myself on our emails that are on the Engage page. I'll put mine too in the chat here.
And I do just want to echo too that we really do want to have a strong youth engagement. And so I know someone mentioned that Claire is connected to Phillips and obviously the other youth organizations and things like that. So that's a personal priority for me is a strong youth involvement in this process.
Kitty, you have your hand raised, I believe.
Right. Marty and Thomas, I'm just wondering, have we been assigned a landscape architect from Patrick MTR?
Yeah, so the Sarah Thompson is the project lead, and she's an RLA. Yep. So, and I can just broadly, I know everyone maybe has different familiarities with what park planning means. And so what this will be is going to be, a lot of initial site assessment, meeting with DPW, getting a sense for their, maintenance practices, things like that. And then obviously a more public facing of getting a sense of not only how do people currently use the park, what they would like to see, obviously different amenities, things like that. And then they will synthesize a lot of that information and come back to the public with probably 2 or 3 concepts. And that's not to say that people have to pick one, but just to kind of giving people something to react to. Those will be, a mix of like conceptual diagrams and then maybe some renderings mixed in. And then based on the feedback we gather during that phase, kind of distill that all into one, a final plan that will come back out to the public, get any final tweaks, thoughts. Typically in that final, thing, we kind of like to think about the things that can happen in the interim before there's any, capital or operating, however the implementation will start, thinking about what can happen, maybe in the middle. So that's typically, how it goes. And again, because these parks are obviously a little smaller than something like Southside Park. You know, a little more, not to say straightforward, but you're not dealing necessarily with the topography and kind of ecological things that, you know, sometimes come up with the larger, more naturalized parks. So, yeah, that's just sort of a high level idea of what is to come. And, you know, the thought would be that the final product is going to be 2 park plans that come with either phasing, if, you know, that is what DPW would like to do, or if it's all in one swoop, you know, things like that, and then cost estimates.
Can you
So-
put the name of the firm, consulting firm in the chat? I also want to just mention the master planning process for Southside Park, and I know that Kitty was involved in that. I don't know if Cara was, but I remember being a part of the going up to look at the different plans that were being proposed, and I really thought that that process was very very engaging and community minded, and the results, I'm not as involved in the parks as Kitty and others are, but it really was comprehensive. So it's nice to see that it's the same consulting firm, correct?
I believe that, well, so Studio Brian Haynes did the plan for Southside Park, and Pashik MTR is they're managing the implementation of this phase.
Okay.
So actually, I think that makes the case that they know how to move a plan into implementation, even dealing with kind of city processes and things like that. So they're doing it. They've done a lot of different parks across the city. They just finished or are finishing Westinghouse Park's plan over in Point Breeze North. So while they didn't do the actual plan for Southside Park, they are managing the design and construction.
Okay. Mike, did you have a question?
No, we'll wait for the ball to start rolling on it to get more involved, ask more questions. Yeah, they're just important parks to us as a community. We have very little green space, and I guess as a architect, I can tell you I don't want to see a master plan that has like a $10 million build out that's never going to happen. I want to see something that's practical and usable for our community. I have a daughter, and it was very difficult to utilize some of these spaces that were run down, and to have a community with kids, we need spaces that are usable and not high lofty, we're going to have one of this, one of that, we're going to have a Ferris wheel in the corner, crap. We need to have a usable green space that's going to be something in perpetuity that we can use as a community. So yeah, that's all I'm hoping for.
I totally agree, and I cannot stress enough how practical Pashik MTR is. They understand the way the city works for all its, good and bad. And they know what is feasible, and they're not going to show anything to the public that isn't an option. So that I don't think they over design things, as sometimes can happen in planning processes. So totally echo all of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And thank you. We definitely look forward to the perspectives from the RCO, that's like Community Council, your understanding of local knowledge in the area, and suggestions on engagement, as well as others in this planning forum and others in the community.
So what are next steps for those that were already identified, and what should they be looking forward to, let's say, in the next 2 weeks or month?
Great question. So I would say right now, kind of per the conversations that Thomas and I have had with Bob, and then Kathleen just listed. So I would say Mike, Kathleen, Claire, Kitty, Cara, and that is who we will like to try and schedule a site visit with the consultants and with DPW. So scheduling that is probably going to be the first thing. I know that there is a Southside Block Party on the 16th, which obviously we don't have, I don't want to try and rush to put anything together, but if, just having the website out there, maybe we can send a QR code or something like that to where people can just know that this is starting. this sort of kind of where we're at. And then I think after the site visit is planned, what we are looking for in terms of an approach to engagement. We know that people are over, meetings overbooked. And so we like to try and to, as much as it's feasible, kind of jump onto meetings that are already happening. I do think that this probably warrants, at least during one of the phases, a standalone meeting. But we want, especially, while the weather is maybe decent, to do them in, one or both of the parks. But so after we sort of get our head around having that initial community engagement, like the surveys and things like that, we will probably try to start plotting out what meetings can we come, participate in, and then maybe setting an event that's just for the parks will be sort of the next phase after that. And like I said, we will do a mix of in-person and online. So whatever surveys or, whatever we're trying to capture, whatever we're showing at community meetings will be on this Engage page as well. We know that there are pros and cons to both styles of engagement. So we think doing both is good. Cara, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, obviously the the Ormsby Rec Center is directly adjacent to the Ormsby Park, and you said you wanted to involve youth. So obviously Phillips is a great potential resource, but just making sure you're talking to the staff there as well.
Definitely. Thank you. And that's, I think, the first, a lot of this is just going to be both utilizing you all to get the word out when things are happening, but also receiving and taking in. On the Engage page, we do have a small question there for people to share any specific stakeholders, individuals, or organizations that that they think should be involved. So people might submit their own names, but we're hoping to, maybe gather, capture things like that as well in the meantime.
How long do you see the process taking?
I think, ideally, like I said, in my ideal world, typically internally we make budget requests in June and July. And I would love to have the cost estimates for this by then. And I think that that's feasible. So, I think that this could be, 5 to 8 months, 5 to 9, I think it could kind of be as, obviously stuff over the holidays, things kind of tend to get pushed out a little bit when you're working kind of through winter. But, again, the team is really capable and can typically turn things around pretty quickly. So let's say Q2 2024 would be my goal.
Hey, any other questions?
I'm just thrilled that it's finally starting. Thank you very much, both of you, for getting us here.
Yep.
Well, thank the council office. They put the funding aside, and again, apologies it has taken so long. I just also quickly want to add that we know that there was the plan for Armstrong done in 2010. And so, not to say that that's null and void because it's, 13 years old, but so that is something the consultants are taking into consideration. And, there will be a little bit of confirming, is this still the case? Is this still the goal? We know the demographics have changed a little bit in the neighborhood in those 13 years. So just let you know that we are aware that exists and is part of this sort of first round of inventorying.
In addition, the open space PGH from 2013 as well. Yeah, we're definitely looking at those.
Okay, if nothing else, thank you all. And thanks for everyone's participation and future participation. So we look forward to hearing about this over time.
Thank you.
Okay. And so our last discussion is with Matt from the Parking Authority. And we had talked last time about the parking collection system And I think you have some information from Dave Honorato that you can share with us. And if anyone has questions, if they remember what we were talking about last month, certainly chime in.
Yes, so I did talk with Dave, and because the question was asked because in the report there was an actual overpayment from the authority to the Southside Enhancement District with regards that what was reported. And the question was asked if the Southside Community Council or the PED would be on the hook for repaying that. And after discussion with Dave, no, it was because it was from 3 years ago also. So no, you're not going to be on the hook. You guys aren't going to be on the hook for paying that back. So everyone's aware. There was some hiccups in the reporting, which have been corrected. So now the reporting I'm doing the reporting differently on how it was previously being done. And so we haven't had any hiccups moving forward.
So does that mean, Matt, just to clarify, I read the report, there was a lot of very, I want to just say minutia comments about the recording and how it was switching over. So for instance, a good example is I go to a meter at 5 o'clock, I put in my card and I'm parked till 7. Does half of that revenue go to the PED and half stays with the other? That was one of those items that was pointed out in the report, like something that starts just before the transition. How is it recorded? How is it accounted for? Is that something that you've come up with a solution? I guess, have they been addressed? And should we ask what those solutions are?
No, those solutions, those were just a misunderstanding from the auditors, to be honest with you. They were misunderstood on how that was working. But we've actually, since in all of our reporting, we've proved that was actually never actually an issue. There was issues to where they were reporting because they didn't understand that if you would start a payment before, like, say 27 minutes before the time was about to end, before midnight, they didn't understand that it was being prorated. So that's what was happening is, so at 11:20 or 11:41, if somebody went to pay and they were paying until midnight, they're only paying for the time that is enforceable. Right, they didn't understand how it wasn't divisible by 25 cents at that point. So everything got broken up. That's where the confusion lied. Or the confusion was with the auditors, but we've since corrected that. Actually, it didn't. We've since explained it better to the auditors.
Yeah, I guess the question is, your letter was attached. Your response to that report was attached at the end of it, which I thought answered a lot of the questions, but a lot of it had to do with you guys working collaboratively closer with the manufacturer to get more information reported out more in line with what they're asking. But I guess have those things happened? I guess you're saying it has, so you're working on it. So everybody's
those on the reporting end of it, the actual reports, yes. Okay. We've since corrected how we were reporting, like the specific report we were pulling. The data's all being saved properly, and so moving forward, that has all been, those actions have all been corrected.
Great. Well, I will have Sonia reach out to you and see if we can just get some data and she can, I guess, crunch down on it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any other questions related to the audit for Matt? Joyce, if you'd like to share the RPP report, just for everyone to see.
Yep.
This would be for the month of, we're in September, August, and compared to previous months, Matt, we're now seeing, it looks like even enforcement in all the zones. Whereas
It was very evident in our zone that there was enforcement going on. That's an
Okay.
eye. So thank you for that increase.
Yeah, because in previous, it was like zero, just about, when others were, when there was enforcement in other areas. So that was a little bit strange.
Yeah, as I stated before, that actually had to do with some of our staffing issues as well. And what has helped is if the police officers then don't show up during the days of the PED, they're going into those districts as well and actually helping enforcement. So they're doing some of the RPP districts that way as well. So that it's been a little bit. So it may not be being done for the PED, but it's helping in the RPP districts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have noticed, I've heard from some residents who have gotten tickets because they're close to a fire hydrant, and that's, or a stop sign, and oftentimes that's unusual. And in some cases, it's not always the it seems to be RPP, the parking authority, that's doing that, when oftentimes it was someone calling 911 and a police officer coming and giving a ticket. I felt bad for a guy who shared with me that he got a parking ticket, and he did go down to the parking authority, and I think he wiggled his way out of paying for the ticket. But he then got a ticket this past week from the because he was parked. He had the street sweeper came later than usual, and he had parked his car and he got a ticket. So he's probably going back down to parking authority, the parking court, to speak about that. But so we appreciate there is enforcement.
It's not, that's not the case down by us. We actually ran into the enforcement, the residential permit parking enforcement agents on the street on Jane, and they told us, writing tickets for fire hydrants, blocking driveways too close to corners, or blocking a moped bicycle parking designated corral area. We asked them, and they said, no, we're strictly doing car license checking for RPP compliance. So I think there is room for improvement there still. I'd like to see more, because that's part of the problem of quality of life. I have 2 handicapped people and 2 people in wheelchairs right now in my block, and sometimes we go out and we can't get off the sidewalk at one end of our block because they're blocking the crosswalks. And I'd like to see that compliance be, those people ticketed into compliance. And there's no sense why we have to call 911 and bother that system when RPP enforcement's driving by multiple times a night. So just like to see that system work for everyone.
I'll address.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt. I was going to ask probably what you're going to offer. Go ahead.
I was actually going to suggest is I will address that with our field supervisors and our enforcement staff at night, to if it's not too much for them to get out of the car, because I don't want them like interrupting traffic or anything like that. But they're getting out of the cars to put the tickets on the cars for the RPP district anyway, so they should be able to comply. We should have no problem complying with those requests.
Yeah, and I think a simple check is just see if we could pull the types of tickets being written by those agents in these zones for the last couple of months, and I think you'd see that there are none or very few, if any. So yeah, if we could get that increased, and again, I know that there are, they're very egregious examples, and then there's some that are people are like, oh, he's 30, 29 feet back from the corner and he still got a ticket. I'm not looking for those people to really break people's spirits. But there are people that are like literally parked on the corner at 8 o'clock at night, and I'd love to see them get a couple of tickets to send a message to compliance or pay, because I think compliance ticketing is a good way to enforce compliance. So.
And I think on Mike's block, it's 21st and Jane, and it's the area where it's that corner where the big billboard is. It's an odd crosswalk, and so often you will see cars parked, and so in the crosswalk, and the crosswalk is strange to begin with, but then when the cars park there, and that is one place that I see a lot of violations. And that's one, if they're driving by and they just remember, 21st and Jane, they can see it and hopefully give a ticket. I know that the officers aren't, they may not always be in the same areas, but that one's that one stands out.
I would also advocate for Sarah and 17th.
The area of 21st actually was brought up to us by a patron, and because it was previously being enforced, because that middle section of 21st up near there, and the middle section was being enforced by the police, and then it was being enforced by us, so there's some confusion. So we've been in talks with the police, and so they gave us the go ahead that we can start enforcing like near the crosswalks again, and they have no problems with us issuing those tickets. So that actually has been addressed with our staff. So we will continue to look at that, and I'll remind our staff again to look at that.
That's great, because those are the ones where if you're walking down Jane or Sarah, you'll walk right into a car usually parked in the crosswalk in the middle of the street there, on both sides. So that would be wonderful. Thank you.
And Cara, if you want to elaborate on 17th and Sarah.
Oh, well, I'm sure Kitty and Jeff can more than I can, but whenever I walk by there, there's almost always a car parked in the crosswalk there as well.
Hey, may I jump in quickly, Barbara?
Yep.
Matt, to understand this on a bigger scale, a more holistic view of where authority lies to write tickets, and I don't want to open a huge can of worms. If we need to take it offline to have a better conversation, I'm happy to do so. But in terms of the authority that is assigned, whether it be under municipal law or state law, to a parking enforcement agent under the parking authority, whether it be RPP or straight across the board enforcement, are we to understand that the powers are indeed vested in parking enforcement agents to write the kinds of tickets that are being requested tonight? Not just an agreement with law enforcement, like, yeah, that's okay, sure, if you want to do that, we're happy. I'm more curious about the powers that either state or municipal government give to your agents to enforce those kinds of tickets when you're on an RPP mission.
Yes, they have that ability to enforce those types of tickets.
Ability or authority?
Well, they have the authority to do it, and they have the authority and the ability to do it.
Perfect. Just so we
work. But just to cut you off, sorry, Bruce, but do they have the direction to do it? And I think, remember,
that's a good point.
3 or 4 years ago, Bruce, when we were meeting with your boss, Mr. Honorato, I think he made the point when we first started implementing the RPP that, you know, it wasn't the priority of those enforcement agents to take that on as part of their enforcement. We argued that, you know, we shouldn't be clogging up 911 for other issues, just, you know, with this car driving by. So I appreciate, Matt, you saying that, because that's what we'd like to see. That saves, you know, our 911 and police force to actually spend time doing what they need to do when your guys are out there doing what they need to do, guys and gals, sorry, doing what they need to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, that fits into the scope of mission that the new chief, Larry Scarrato, has in terms of police officers responding to parking complaints and making those much lower priority. So in these understaffed times, we can have officers available to respond to more critical need. So that sounds to me like that's a win-win on both sides.
Okay, Ro Berman has her hand raised.
Sorry, I'll mute myself. Thanks. Just had a quick question on what the policy is regarding people who park in front of paper streets. I mean, we have people park there all the time. I assume it's okay because I've never seen anyone ticketed, but I figured since I'm on this call, let me just ask that question.
I know a lot about paper streets. If I could tell you what I know, because I've actually assumed one as part of my property, and we looked into code all the way back to the 1870s or something with our lawyer at the time. But no, unless you can drive a vehicle down it, it's considered pedestrian and an extension of a sidewalk is what we're always told. So you can park on the street perpendicular to it. But if someone is actually pulling up into it, I had a case where people were riding motorcycles down ours at all hours and you know, inappropriate use of it. That's something different. That could probably be ticketed because it's
parked on this, I guess, across it. So the car vehicle really couldn't go through it if they needed to, but that would be okay.
Yeah, they can park across it at the end, blocking it, because no vehicle is supposed to go down. It's for pedestrian use. And then as it comes to ownership with the city, our understanding from our legal team at the time, this is 10, 15 years ago, we did this, was that the property is actually owned by no one. The city has no ownership in it. It's like a road. But the neighboring properties own half up to the midpoint and are responsible for the care and maintenance of it. Up until the point where they use a side yard program, you can actually acquire that, as we did down next to my house here, our house, and you can privatize it if you'd like. Some of them, you know, the neighbors, you have to have all the neighbors in agreement to do it, which is hard to do. But in our case, it was easy because we knew all of our neighbors and everybody wanted that control because we were having some issues with what was going on in that alley. I have one at the other end of our block where we fenced it in so far and all of us agreed to do that, but we haven't gone to the privatization stage yet because it seems to have solved the problem. So I hope that answers your question, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but I may have the question down the road. I now know the guy to go to, so thank you.
Yeah, I think we spent $8,000 in 2005. It took 3 years to do it and go through the city. And I think we're the first ones to privatize a paper street. I think that our lawyer said since 1964 or something like that. So nobody at the city, nobody knew what to do at the time, but we paid for it. So, but it was,
thank you, appreciate it.
So Kitty, is your hand raised?
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to confirm what Cara was saying about 17th Street and the crosswalk in particular. It's the crosswalk that goes from the northwest corner of Sarah and 18th directly across the 17th Street to right in front of 116, the Steeler house. There is one car in particular that I think that's his private parking spot. He's there repeatedly, and even we've seen the parking authority drive right down the street. And I even stopped them one night and I said, "So is it all good tonight on 17th Street?" And they said, "It's perfect." And I walk up a few more cars and there's a car parked across the crosswalk. And again, we have a few neighbors who are confined to those electronic wheelchairs, and kids go there, for school. It just needs to be on the radar that they are getting it on the crosswalk that crosses Sarah, parallel to 17th. We've seen a number of tickets for cars that are encroaching on that crosswalk, but it seems that nobody is paying attention to the crosswalk that actually goes across 17th Street. So if you could add that to your problem list, Matt, that'd be great.
Kitty, you'll be happy to know that I had a sketch for both Jane and Sarah for adding bump outs there. I think a bump out is the right solution to extend out from the parking side and make the crosswalk shorter, and also to hold it from being parked in.
Yeah.
At there and Jane Street, because those are very dangerous. Where the grid offsets there, it's a very challenging corner, especially the way people go around the corner at Dish. That's also a very dangerous intersection.
And the other thing is the crosswalk isn't painted all the way across 17th. So I do think that the enforcement cars don't even know it's there half the time.
And the reason why it wasn't painted is because there was a car parked there and they couldn't paint.
Well, when we met with the mayor a few weeks back, we did give them a list of intersections that were not painted or incompletely painted in the crosswalks, because that's been a priority of mine since Maddie was young, and trying to navigate the neighborhood with small children, her and her friends, to go places, and telling them, oh, when you're, follow the crosswalks, this is where you're safe as pedestrian. And then you get up to an intersection and 2 are painted and the other 2 aren't, and the kids are scratching their head. It's not, consistency is key here. And so that's why we asked that this be addressed. It's just paint.
So I would be happy to follow up with Deputy Mayor Pollack on those requests. I know the desire of Public Works is to transition all crosswalks into the piano key style. I don't know if that might be limiting our ability or our desire to go out and make these corrections. I'm not sure, but I will follow up and see exactly where we are on that. I can report out next month. The one that Kitty was referencing, though, that crosses from Sarah on 17th Street there, I don't know if Matt can answer this question or not, but state law as to how close one can park to a crosswalk, could it be as high as 30 feet? I think we need law enforcement for this. It could limit, and I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, but we could run into an unintended consequence of limiting parking 30 feet in each direction. That would be like the most, crazy example I could give, but it could be 15 feet on each section. Bob, you signed on. Do you have a sense?
Yeah, I know the answer is that we don't enforce what is code. We enforce less than that. I think that we enforce 15 feet, but I think the code is 30.
When we did RPP, we did a quick assessment to see how much parking we'd lose to be legitimately parked. And I can tell you it's 30 feet from the opposite street's face of curb back, or no parking within a crosswalk designated area, or it's 30 feet from a stop sign.
Yes.
Or 15 feet either side of a fire hydrant. And what was it? It was 40 feet from an electronic, or in other words, a signaled intersection. So
what I'm offering here, Mike, is that if we were to go down the road of legal enforcement of that crosswalk and asking city intervention of it, it could come down to the loss of 4 or 5 parking spaces. It could.
Yeah,
so
but I think that,
if I may finish though, so without speculating, let me take this offline and let me ask some questions and follow up on the request and see just exactly, what our consequence might be.
but I think all we're asking is if there's a car that is in the, parked in the crosswalk,
Yes,
Please,
but
ticket.
I believe it's state law. I don't want to speak for
Yeah.
State Representative Benham, that crosswalk enforcement, legal crosswalk enforcement is 15 feet on either side of that crosswalk.
Right.
And that is such a weird crosswalk, and how it just sort of dumps into the center of the block. We could take out 2 parking spaces on either side. There'd be 4 parking spaces that would not be legit there. I'm speculating. So please let me do my homework and see if I can find the answers to that.
And Kathleen has her hand raised.
Yeah, and in the meantime, with that, there's on the Steeler House side, there is a telephone pole right there. Is there any way that we could get a sign that says no parking and crosswalk at least? So, because some people might not realize it's a crosswalk, and if we had a sign, they would know that you can't park there.
If we had it painted, they would know, but the sign couldn't hurt at all by any means. So yeah, I'm happy to take all those to Deputy Mayor Pollack and get a follow-up for you.
I just Googled it, your Pittsburgh section 541.02 prohibition of parking under section B. Stand or park a vehicle, no one shall, within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, within 20 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection, within 30 feet of an approach of a flashing signal, within 20 feet of a driveway entrance, so on and so forth.
That is such an unusual crosswalk. I don't know if there's another that exists in the city like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly even our code doesn't reference
18th and Pius is another one like that, where the crosswalk goes right into houses. Yeah, I think it's pretty common, unfortunately.
We had multiple requests over the years to do center of the block crosswalks for Southside Hospital because of how they cross patients from the Hart Park into the hospital. And it took years to accomplish that, years and years and years, because Public Works steadfastly refused to do them.
Yeah.
So Kathleen, is your hand still up with another question, or did
No,
you?
I've read take it down.
Okay. All right. So I think good conversation with Matt. So I appreciate him being here. Any other questions for him? Okay, if not, we're going to we're going to go to old business, and it's the development activities meetings. Cara, do you have anything to report?
I do. For the
Okay.
first time in almost a year, we have some development activity meetings. We have one meeting for 2 projects on Wednesday, September 20th. One of the projects is a development at 2712 Burham Street, and the other is the mural on the Arlington Rec Center. So both of those are going for, community approval, and it will be at 6 p.m. and it will be on Zoom.
So with community council, we have we didn't have a development activities meeting last month. This month, September 21st at 6 p.m. 2130 East Carson Street. It's you may recognize it. It's the Kick Lops tattoo shop. It's between what used to be, what's it called, Mike?
Cyclops.
It used to be what used to be Stutz's and Dive. Their work is being done on the back of the building facing Cary Way, and because the building is in the historic district, it will need to go to the Historic Review Commission. And then our second presentation will be 1403 Sarah Street. This property and another property, 1405 Sarah Street, had come to us last summer, and there were variance requests, and those were denied. And so we believe that the owners had appealed it to the Court of Common Pleas, but now they are back only asking for they're going to be for the zoning board for 1403 Sarah Street. And Mike, do you want to explain, they were a two-family home. It was a two-family home. It was demolished. As a two-family home, I think it had been given a variance before in order to become a two-family home. And now, because it's no longer there, it's single family, and they wanted to revert back to two-family when they build. Am I correct in that? Or you can explain it better?
Yeah, the zoning is for single family, both lots. They thought they were going to tear down both. One existing was a 2-unit, the other one was a single, and they wanted to build two 2-unit places. We did not want to see that. The units were small and just inappropriate for the space. And now they've come back and they're offering to rebuild what was there, a 2-unit and a single. I don't know how the neighbors are going to respond. The 2-unit, once you tear a place down, the zoning variance for the 2-unit is moot. It's gone. You're asking for a brand new one. So technically they're asking now for a variance to go from single family structure to a duplex, all anew. Even though there was one there, it does not matter. Once it's torn down, zoning code is clear, that is gone with it. So we'll have to see what the neighbors say at the meeting.
And I think that what their argument had been in the Court of Common Pleas, if it was heard, was that it was the city that, because I think the back of the structure was bad, that the city forced them to demolish the building. And so it wasn't something that they wanted to do. What I have been unable to find is what any decision was, if it actually went to the Court of Common Pleas, because there was an appeal, but it's easy to go to the magisterial court and find what the decisions are. I can't figure out how to find the decisions that are in the Court of Common Pleas. So if anybody on this call can assist with that, I have the SA number, but have spent a lot of time on the internet looking for that, and I haven't been able to find it. I checked with zoning and they just gave me the SA number. But if anybody, I think not to belabor this, but when you think about the development activities process and a registered community organization, those two meetings, one was on June 16th, 2022 and July 21st, 2022. Those are on our YouTube page. I think that was a good example of what a registered community organization can do with community engagement, and to make development that you want. You don't want vacant lots in the community, but you also want buildings that are that fit with the community. And so for me, I think those are two good examples of the good work that our registered community organization has done. So new business, if member organization reports and announcements, Cara?
Yep. We are hosting a Garbage Olympics cleanup on Saturday, September 23rd. And largely we will be cleaning up on that day for Step Trek, which will be Saturday, October 7th. Yes, tickets are for sale and we are selling t-shirts for one more week if you want them before the event. Otherwise, they'll get shipped after the event. So hope to see some people walking the steps at Step Trek.
So Candace with the chamber.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to report that I was subpoenaed to court by Judge Rangos to appear at the sentencing hearing for the arsonist who torched the building at 1100 East Carson Street. I'm considered a crime scene victim because I was in the building and I did not know the building was on fire. So anyhow, I'll go tomorrow and I will represent the chamber and the Welcome Center and the community at that corner. And I'll report back to you at the next meeting.
Hey,
So-
Lynn, anything to report with UPMC?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Kathy,
Yes, good news. God is good. The Southside Presbyterian Church does have a new pastor. And I am very delighted to have met her a number of times and heard her. She is a wonderful, compassionate, caring person. Her name is Dora Odorenko, and she is officially started September 1st. There still are some approvals that are needed by our higher judicatory in the Presbyterian Church USA. So, you know, but those all seem to be in order. And I would like to invite her to the next meeting of the planning forum, if that would be all right with everybody. She has, this is a second career for her ministry. She was a teacher for decades, both all the way from K through university level. She's got, and she has a beautiful singing voice, some music degrees as well. And she's a published poet. She's a writer. She's been editing books as well, and just a marvelous background, compassionate person, very caring and interested in the community, and all the people who are often overlooked. And so I think you'll all really enjoy meeting her and getting to know her.
okay, thank you. You do look a little less stressed, I must say.
Oh. It's so wonderful. It's been 2 years, and that's hard on a church to go without a person who's there every week after week after week. So I'm very grateful, and I think you will again be delighted to meet her as well.
Thank you. So with Southside Community.
May I invite her when the next?
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Yes. So with Southside Community Council, the Southside Community 15203 is having the neighborhood party at Armstrong Field, 3 to 7 on Saturday, and everyone is invited to participate. I like the way, I think Kitty had mentioned that, you know, the spring social is when, you know, we're coming out of our houses to enjoy the spring and summer months. You know, the neighborhood party is where we say goodbye and, you know, hello to fall in the winter months. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Their neighbor night with Southside Community Action Network will be on Tuesday, September 19th at 6 p.m. And dinner will be provided by Sultry F&B. And I think Rose said that there may be about 60 people who have currently signed up. And September 26th, it's a Tuesday at 6:30, Southside Community Council will have its general meeting. We will share, it's the time when we usually share our accomplishments. And then we also have a board election. And so we invite, we'll be sending out the Zoom link shortly for that. Ro, Dawn, Kitty, anyone else, if they have anything else to share that I may have forgotten, please let me know. Kitty, you have your hand raised?
I would just like to remind people that Open Door Pittsburgh is
right.
going to be featuring the Southside Flats on Saturday, September 23rd. And it's, you know, there's some places that are open in the morning and some places that are open all day and some places that are open only in the afternoon. But this is a great opportunity to showcase the South Side Flats. So please share this opportunity with friends near and far.
And Candace, I'm wondering if you at the chamber may be able to put together, or you may already have it together, places where those that are participating can eat and with the times, because I know that different places may be open Saturdays, so they should all be open. But if those were made available to the different stops, I think there would be opportunities for people to be able to go to where it is that they may want to go.
Right, I could do that for sure.
So Jessica, I need to remember to put you in before old business. So we'll have to change that on the agenda.
All good. Just a couple announcements from me, and I will drop these in the chat as well. I have a shredding event coming up on October 7th from 9 to 11 a.m. It's going to be in Arlington at the New Academy Charter School in their parking lot, which, if you're not familiar, is just kind of back off of Spring Street on Jonquil Way. On October 9th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., I am hosting a blood drive at the Southside VFW. Our blood bank is still desperately in need of donations. There is a shortage, so if folks are available to donate, that would be fantastic. And on October 12th, I am hosting a Medicare information event at the Mount Oliver Firehouse from 1 to 3 p.m. So those are the upcoming events from my office. And of course, you all know where to find me if you have any state-related questions or business.
Dawn, you have your hand raised. I missed seeing that.
Sure. Just want to let you know that I met the new Zone 3 commander today, Jeff Abrams. He attended the ship meeting at Nario's, and he noted that he was adding another 2 members to the Southside Entertainment Patrol, which was welcome and a little bit unexpected, and was also committing to a total of 12 next year for the Southside Entertainment Patrol, which I think is really good news. Also, there were a bunch of members of the patrol that were at the meeting, and I think they had 41 non-traffic citations last, I think that was the number, last weekend. So they're really, trying to maintain that pressure on open containers and people misbehaving. So I think that's all good news.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, not to talk about CHIP again, but one other point since the last time we met with Planning Forum, kind of a success of the SHIP folks, and I don't think anyone's here to represent them. There was an artist coming to Pittsburgh, or coming to, well, they're not calling it Foxdale anymore, but what was Foxdale, that we were, a lot of us have been pretty weary of. There were some pretty just not what we want to bring to the South Side. And the success of the SHIP meeting is that they were able to work with the gentleman who's going to be running Foxtail, and we're able to get him to agree to canceling the event. It also happened that that artist was arrested that morning, so I think that also played a little piece of that. But the success of SHIP has really been that these folks are getting together in a room and kind of policing themselves a little bit and working to promote themselves. And it really is something that could be very successful. And we want to make sure that they're included in events like the Planning Forum going forward, because they are a pivotal part of our neighborhood.
Yeah, I think as we talk about reorganizing the forum, that is something, we need to think about additional groups to come and be part of it. So thank you for that. And Dawn, your hand is still raised. Do you have another question?
I do not.
Okay. Is there anything else for this meeting. I think it was a very good meeting. And hopefully we can get more community members to attend, and we'll be working on that in the near future. Anything else for anyone? Any comments, questions?
Thanks for everybody's work.
All right.
I'm
Good
also
night.
delighted to hear about the parks study and planning. That's great. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks to everybody for attending and sticking around at 7:07.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I know.
Thank you, Barb.
You.